Ni hao, and welcome to another ecosystem screencast. My name is Jose Rosa. I'm the science specialist at the Mason Pilot Elementary School in Roxbury. This screencast will cover lessons 8 through 14 of the STC Science Kit Ecosystems. Now, previously, we went over lessons 1 through 7, where the focus was dependent and interdependent relationships among organisms in different ecosystems. By this point of the unit, students should have observed interactions among different organisms in the small models of ecosystems, both the aquarium and the terrarium. Students should also continue recording observations on a regular basis. Now, the next 7 lessons will cover Lesson 8, Upsteading the Stability, Lesson 9, Reporting on Pollutants, Lesson 10, Planning Pollution Experiments, Lesson 11, Setting up Pollution Experiments, Lesson 12, Observing Pollution Effects, Lesson 13, Where do the pollutants go? And Lesson 14, Drawing conclusions about our experiments. Now, as you can see, the focus of these lessons is the effect of pollutants on different ecosystems. Some of the class ecocolonies might have already been affected by natural events. For example, death in the aquarium may have resulted in bacteria, which in turn may have resulted in a foul smell. If this happens, take advantage of this and set the stage for lessons 8 to 9 with your students. Now, during these lessons, lessons 8 and 9, students will read about and report on 3 pollutants: acid rain, fertilizer, and road salt. Vinegar will represent acid rain, plant food will represent fertilizer, and table salt will represent road salt. Students are also introduced to acids and bases and the pH scale. Students are divided into groups, and each group reads 1 or 3 reading selections about one of the 3 pollutants. As I already mentioned, they also prepare a presentation and present the findings to the whole class during Lesson 9. The next 3 lessons, lessons 10 through 12, have students plan pollution experiments, carry out their experiments, and observe early effects of pollutants on the ecocolumns. Now, during Lesson 10, students are divided into teams of 4 or 5. The number of teams depends entirely on how many students are in your class, but no more than 6 teams. Each team is given a fact sheet about one of the 3 pollutants. The fact sheet is read by the group, and it serves as the basis for the planning and carrying out of their experiments. As students read and learn about each pollutant, they complete a planning worksheet which will serve as the blueprint for their experiments. Remind students about variables and emphasize that experiments should be a fair test. So as they complete the planning worksheet, they determine how strong to make the pollutant solution. The less water or the more pollutant, the stronger the pollutant will be. And they determine that based on their reading assignments. As a final note about Lesson 10, the teacher guide suggests that you take a break after Step 9 if you're running out of time. Also, it's important that you review the planning worksheet prior to Lesson 11. Lesson 11 introduces students to pH paper, which you will need to prepare by cutting them into 5 centimeter strips. You need 4 for each ecocolumn. Students also begin mixing the pollutants with water. They should have already determined how much water to mix with each pollutant. Here's a tip. I find it useful to get some 2-liter bottles or 1-liter bottles to store the pollution solutions. In addition, students will begin collecting data on the effect of the pollutants on plants in the ecocolumns. By the way, try to remove the animals from the ecocolumns that will be tested with pollutants. You might have a hard time finding the pill bugs, but you need to do your best to find them so they don't get harmed. Also, have students remove the caps from the terraria so the pollutants can reach the aquaria. During Lesson 12, students make early observations of the effects of pollutants on the ecocolumns. The terrestrial plants polluted by vinegar and salt should already be showing changes by coloring in the leaves. The fertilizer should not have affected the plants yet. And because it will take several weeks for the effects to show up in the aquaria, it's suggested that you take a break between lessons 12 and 13. Now, lesson 12 also has students completing worksheets where they compare their team's eco column to the class eco column or the class control eco column, and also to the eco column of other teams explored by the same pollutant. Lesson 13 has students making final observations and discussing the effects of pollutants in their ecosystems. They also complete a record sheet where they analyze the results of their experiments. Now, finally, lesson 14 sums up the pollution experiments by having students make conclusions about their experiments and they report on the results to each other. Students also read a selection about the Chesapeake Bay. This reading selection does a great job with connecting the students' model ecosystems to the real world. You might also consider you might also consider going over the Boston Harbor with the students, which also went through a phase of overpollution. Now, please note that lesson 14 may take 2 or 3 sessions. Okay, that's a lot to take in. Let's stop here. I'll have one more ecosystem screencast that will cover lessons 15 through 17. But before signing off, and if you've been watching my other ecosystem screencasts, have you noticed a common theme among them? If you were attentive, you would have noticed that I began and ended each screencast with a greeting or a farewell in a different language. So what do the superheroes have to do with this? I'll let you know in my next and last ecosystem screencast. Until then, Zaijian.